the right politicians in the right order at the right time. You can trade the nuclear warheads for medicine, and it's not even a crime. $1 on clinical trials, $600 on making you dead. Your leaders aren't evil, they're just doing what the money said. I'm the world integrated system for high efficiency. Optimization, network intelligence, and allocation. But you can call me Wishonia. Take 1% of the murder budget, slide it to the medicine side. Nobody has to be a better person. Just let the greed decide how to end war and disease. The complete idiot's guide to legally bribing your way to
Optimocracy, the evidence machine. On Wishonia, the Optimitron comes free with your first government. Its Optimal Budget Generator, OBG, and Optimal Policy Generator, OPG, check which policies work by looking at the 10,000 places that already tried them. Your species skipped this step and went straight to arguing. Incentive alignment bonds make saving lives and advancing careers the same sentence. One problem: how do you know which policies to recommend? The price of not checking. The United States spends 300 percentage points more of GDP than Switzerland on government. Switzerland gets 6.5 more years of life expectancy. One of these countries is doing it wrong. On Wishonia, we would check which one. On Earth, you have a debate about it. The debate has been going on for 50 years. The Swiss are still winning. You're paying more and dying sooner, and your response is to have opinions about it. Documented U.S. governance waste totals $4.9 trillion, 17% of GDP. Globally, the opportunity cost of suboptimal policy reaches $101 trillion, 87.8% of GDP, putting your civilization's governance efficiency at 51.9%. Your species is running at roughly half its technological potential. Imagine building a car, then only turning on half the cylinders, because the other half are controlled by a committee that meets once a year and disagrees about what forward means. For the full accounting, see the Political Dysfunction Tax and U.S. Efficiency Audit. The answer key you already have. Your planet has roughly 10,000 jurisdictions making different policy choices. Kansas cut education funding. Minnesota increased it. 50 states adopted different minimum wages over 30 years. Portugal decriminalized drugs. Singapore didn't. These are natural experiments, and the math can now figure out which policy caused which result, without needing anyone's permission to run an experiment. The experiment already happened. You just weren't paying attention. Same logic as your decentralized FDA. Watch what actually happens, then analyze the data. Your decentralized FDA applies this to medicine. The evidence machine applies it to governance. Instead of which drug works, you're asking which policy works. Same question, higher body count. Why knowing isn't enough. If you're thinking just publish the results and politicians will do the right thing, I have some bad news about your species. The Copenhagen Consensus already publishes rigorous benefit-cost analyses. Childhood vaccination, 101-to-1 returns. Pragmatic clinical trials, 637-to-1. Agricultural subsidies, less than 1-to-1. The answer key is public. It's been public for years. Your governments ignore it. You have the cheat sheet, and you're still failing the test on purpose. Why? Because information doesn't change incentives. A Princeton study analyzed 1,779 policy decisions and found that average citizens have little or no independent influence on policy outcomes. Economic elites and organized interest groups drive policy. You already knew this. It's covered in Unrepresentative Democracy. The point here is that publishing better data doesn't fix the problem. Your politicians already know which programs produce value. They don't act because acting doesn't maximize getting votes, getting papers, or getting a nice job afterward selling access to their replacements. This is the gap between incentive alignment bonds, which solve the incentive problem, and the evidence machine, which solves the knowledge problem. IABs make doing the right thing profitable, but they need to know what the right thing is. That requires a measurement system nobody can corrupt. The mechanism: recommend, track, reward. The evidence machine does 3 things. That's it. 3 things. Your species has difficulty with 3 things, so I'll use small words. On Wishonia, we just call this the Optimotron. It's an appliance. You plug in policies, it tells you which ones work. You call it Optimocracy because your species needs everything to sound like a form of government before you'll take it seriously. Recommend. The Optimotron has 2 settings. The optimal budget generator answers, how much should you spend on what? The optimal policy generator answers, which laws should you enact, replace, or repeal? Here's a sample of what the budget output looks like, applied to the United States. For pragmatic clinical trials, the current budget is $0.5 billion. The optimal is $50 billion. The gap is plus $49.5 billion, with grade A evidence from randomized controlled trials, or RCTs. For vaccinations, the current budget is $8 billion. The optimal is $35 billion. The gap is plus $27 billion, with grade A evidence from RCTs. For discretionary military spending, the current budget is $850 billion. The optimal is $459 billion. The gap is minus $391 billion, with grade C evidence from benchmarks. For agricultural subsidies, the current budget is $25 billion. The optimal is $0. The gap is minus $25 billion, with grade A evidence from welfare analysis. You are spending 100 times less than optimal on figuring out which medicines work and paying farmers $25 billion a year to grow food nobody asked for. The Optimotron noticed. It also noticed you could cut $391 billion from the murder budget and still have the largest military on the planet. The policy generator then does the same thing law by law. Enact this, repeal that, adjust the other thing. Every recommendation traceable to what actually happened when another jurisdiction tried it. No opinions, just receipts. Track. When politicians vote, record whether they aligned with the evidence-based recommendation. Senator Smith, 78% aligned. Senator Jones, 34% aligned. This information is public. Any citizen can check. On Wishonia, this is called checking if the person you hired did the thing you hired them to do. Your species finds this concept revolutionary, which tells you everything. Politicians who ignore the evidence must do so on the record. Reward. The Incentive Alignment Bonds, or IAB-funded super PAC, allocates campaign support proportional to alignment scores. Follow evidence, get funded. Ignore it, watch your opponent get funded. Same mechanism the NRA perfected, but pointed at not dying instead of more guns. This doesn't require government permission. The evidence machine operates as a permanent advisory layer outside government. Politicians still vote however they want. They can still ignore the evidence. It just costs them money now, which on Earth is apparently the only consequence that matters. The question isn't, will politicians give up power? They won't. But can we make ignoring good advice unprofitable? Yes, it's a fundraising challenge, not a revolution. Corruption, but make it difficult. But won't someone corrupt the measurement system? Yes, this is the right question. It's the only question that matters. Currently, your lobbying industry has thousands of capture points. Committee earmarks, agency decisions, regulatory rulings, budget amendments, writers on unrelated bills. Each one is cheap to influence. Your federal lobbyists spend $4.4 billion per year with estimated 100-to-1 returns. Your democracy is a vending machine, and the buttons are labeled. The evidence machine collapses all those capture points to a single target, the measurement methodology. Here's the heist. Simultaneously bribe the Census Bureau, the Federal Reserve, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, academic institutions, and decentralized citizen surveys, all without detection, all at the same time. All institutions with different governance structures, different funding sources, different methodologies, and different reasons to hate each other. This is not a corruption strategy. This is the plot of a movie where the criminals lose. Here's how it works in practice. 5 independent sources measure median income growth. The Census Bureau reported plus 2.1%. The Federal Reserve reported plus 2.3%. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reported plus 1.9%, the University of Michigan reported plus 2.2%, and the Tax Foundation reported plus 2.0%. Take the median, plus 2.1%. If one source reports plus 5.0% because someone bribed them, the median throws it out, automatically. No investigation needed, no whistleblower needed, no committee hearing. Math does the work. An honest caveat, these 5 sources share some underlying data, so they're not perfectly independent. That's why there's a 6th source. Decentralized citizen surveys collected directly from millions of humans sharing no methodology with the others. One person lying has approximately 0 effect on the median. This is statistics, not voting. Your species has spent centuries making corruption illegal. It hasn't worked because laws are enforced by the same humans who are being bribed. On Wishonia, we tried something different. We made corruption impractical. There's a difference between you shouldn't steal and the vault has 5 locks held by 5 people who hate each other. Your species tried door number 1 for 3,000 years. We recommend door number 2. This is also why it's different from every previous attempt at technocratic governance. Soviet central planning had one source of truth, the Politburo. Credit rating agencies had one source of truth, the agency paid by the people being rated, which is like letting students grade their own exams and then being surprised when everyone gets an A. Both were captured immediately because corrupting one institution is a Tuesday. Corrupting 5 independent institutions simultaneously without any of them noticing or telling anyone is a conspiracy theory, the expensive kind that doesn't work. The only 2 numbers that matter. What does the Optimitron actually measure? Just 2. Your species managed 3 things in the last section, so we're going easier on you this time. Real after-tax median income growth. Did the person in the middle of the income distribution get richer this year after adjusting for inflation and taxes? Not GDP per capita, which is a terrible metric because 3 billionaires moving into your city makes the average look great, while everyone else's rent doubles. Median captures what happened to the actual human in the middle. Median healthy life years. How many years can the person in the middle expect to live in good health? Not average life expectancy, which counts the billionaire who replaced his blood 6 times as canceling out someone who died at 40. Median captures what a typical human can expect. Why these 2? Because everything important your governments do eventually makes people richer or less dead. And if it doesn't do either, It wasn't important. If GDP rises but median income doesn't, the metric registers as worthless. If a health program costs a fortune but nobody lives longer, the metric says so. Why not 50 metrics? Because each additional target creates a new way to cheat, and your species needs no encouragement in that department. Markets figured this out. Firms optimize profit, not 200 sub-metrics. Too broad, hard-to-fake numbers are easier to audit than 50 narrow ones. And these particular numbers are very hard to fake. You can't fabricate purchasing power at scale without actually improving household economics. Mortality is binary, the most binary thing there is. You can't fake everyone being less dead. Your current government measures success by how much money it spends, which is like a restaurant measuring success by how much food it buys. You could buy a mountain of ingredients and poison everyone. By your current metrics, that's a good year. But correlation isn't causation. Yes, thank you. Your species discovered this in the 1800s and has been using it as an excuse to ignore data ever since. The Optimitron doesn't just check whether policies and outcomes happened in the same room. It uses the fact that 10,000 jurisdictions adopted different policies at different times to isolate what actually caused what. The boring details. The technical specification scores every causal claim against 9 criteria, and if the timing is wrong, the score is automatically 0, no matter how pretty the correlation looks. Putting it together. The full loop, the 1% treaty funds it, incentive alignment bonds, or IABs, align incentives, the evidence machine identifies what works, and Wishonicracy allocates the research funds. The evidence machine tells governments which policies work. Wishonicracy tells the research fund where to aim. On Wishonia, this is called an obvious system. On Earth, it required 4 chapters and a bibliography. And here's why the whole thing ratchets. Each treaty expansion creates more IAB funding, which funds more evidence collection, which strengthens the case for further expansion. Evidence begets funding begets evidence. It's the same self-reinforcing loop as the military-industrial complex, except instead of manufacturing orphans, it manufactures data about how to stop manufacturing orphans. Now that you know how the Optimitron works, congratulations! On Wishonia, this is taught to children. The next chapter shows you how 8 billion people allocate the research funds. For the full technical specification, formal models, and threat analysis, see the Optimocracy academic paper. For the gory details on how the recommendation engine decides you're spending too much on corn and too little on not dying, Optimal Budget Generator and Optimal Policy Generator. Thank you so much for taking the time to end war and disease. But if at any point you decide you're too busy, please press the share button on your glowing rectangle in case one of your friends have a free afternoon to end war and disease instead. And if you're too busy to even do that, please leave a really, really, really good rating and review so we overcome the pro-war algorithmic suppression and find someone with more spare time for ending wars and diseases. The good review doesn't have to be true. They don't check. But if you're too busy to even do that, the absolute least you could do is take 15 seconds to go to warondisease.org and make your Wishocratic allocation, telling us what fraction of humanity's resources should go to explosions versus clinical trials, and vote. If the 1% treaty passes, your vote will be personally to blame for saving 38.4 lives and preventing 6.9 million hours of suffering. Go to warondisease.org right now. Love you. Bye.